Welcome. Each of you is a precious thing this morning. I guess everybody, at least in Shreveport, everybody beyond the lake, I guess that's what they do here too, I don't know. But each of you coming and making time for our service is wonderful. And I'm sure that there are those of you watching on YouTube or on film, and we are glad you're there too. Community Church Unitarian Universalist gathers in person and virtually in these unaccustomed times. Our purpose is to form a community, to practice and advance a free and responsible search for truth and meaning as a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We believe we need not think alike to love alike. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of justice and compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of all people, of all creation. We welcome those who come in the spirit of love. You are welcomed here. Please look at the announcements on community matters, the email that you received. I would like to remind each of you that July the 17th, we're having a new to CCUU gathering. We try to have pizza and, something to drink, and we tell you a lot about how this church chooses to be in community. And so if anyone's interested in doing that, please email the whole team, membership@ccuunola.org. We look forward to hearing from you. Our speaker this morning is congregation member Jim O'Neill. Dr. O'Neill has a psychotherapy practice in the area, and I have no doubt he's wonderful because I know he's very interested in Jung, and as I am too, and it makes wonderful therapy. Awareness, coming to awareness. Jim's spoken to us before, and it's always been insightful, and so I'm looking forward to our message today. It is a community church's tradition to light a chalice. We invoke hope and eternal truth to our worship. Please join us in singing the words in your order of service. Brings us her words for all ages.
Good morning, everyone. First, I wanted to announce that we are having RE classes, so if the parents want to bring their children back, it's okay. We are doing Magic Summer, and so we're going to be addressing the 3 magic S's. Service to others, silence and meditation, and sunshine and movement. So we're going to have activities around those 3 S's. So please bring the children. We would love to see them again. So I found this great book. It's called The Girls' Bill of Rights. I have the right to like what I like and love what I love. I have the right to look how I look and wear what I wear and do whatever I want with my hair. I have the right to think for myself and choose for myself and say yes if I want something and no if I don't, and the right to change my mind. I have the right to speak my truth, even if someone doesn't want to hear it. I have the right to feel what I feel every moment, even if it makes someone uncomfortable. I have the right to laugh and the right to cry. I have the right to feel scared and the right to get mad. I have the right to make mistakes, even big ones, and the right to forgive myself. I have the right to choose my friends and the right to hug or high five or smile, or not to smile. If someone is hurting or disrespecting me, I have the right to say stop, or even the right to scream it. Because it's not okay to hurt me or anyone, not ever. I have the right to be bold and mighty and loud. I have the right to be silly and awkward and proud. I have the right to decide who I'll be for now, for tomorrow, and forever. Because most of all, no matter what, I absolutely always have the right to be me. We all do. The end. Thank you so much.
This reading is from Listening to Your Life by Frederick Buechner. All isms run out in the end, and good riddance to most of them. Patriotism, for example. If patriots are people who stand by their country, right or wrong, Germans who stood by Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich should be adequate proof that we've had enough of them. If patriots are people who believe not only that anything they consider unpatriotic is wrong, but that anything they consider wrong is unpatriotic, the late Senator Joseph McCarthy and his backers should be enough to make us avoid them like a plague. If patriots are people who believe things like better dead than red, they should be shown films of Hiroshima and Nagasaki on August the 6th and 9th, 1945, respectively, and then be taken off to the funny farm. The only patriots worth their salt are the ones who love their country enough to see that in a nuclear age, it is not going to survive unless the world survives. True patriots are no longer champions of democracy, communism, or anything like that, but champions of the human race. It is not the homeland that they feel called on to defend at any cost, but the planet Earth as our home. If in the interest of making sure we don't blow ourselves off the map once and for all, we end up relinquishing a measure of national sovereignty to some international body, so much for national sovereignty. There is only one sovereignty that matters ultimately, and it is of another sort altogether. That ends the reading. As we know, Community Unitarian Universalist is a self-sustaining congregation. The generosity of members and friends enables the congregation to fulfill its purpose in doing the sacred work. You can make your donations online, ccunola.org/stewardship, or by texting 504-370-2659, enter GIVE. You can also mail a check, of course, to 6690 Fleur de Lis Drive, 70124. The congregation is invited to put their gifts in our offering dish. Your support is always appreciated. We appreciate that. This is a time that is important for weaving together our congregation, our community, as we take this opportunity to share our personal joys and sorrows with one another. You can participate online by writing in the chat box, and we'll try to catch it for you. Yes, Marilyn has some things to pass out. This one's from Sally. A joy for those of us who live alone. You are never truly alone unless you shut others out. Being physically alone is different from being truly alone. Certainly wisdom. From Jim and Vera, sorrow that women's rights to bodily autonomy are being taken away. Have two wishing Wilma happy birthday. We miss seeing you. We do miss seeing Wilma. This one gave me a jolt. Bet it's from you, Alan. I didn't put another last name on it. Farewell to Amelia Earhart, the pilot, who went into the shark-infested waters of the Pacific Ocean on the 2nd of July, 1939. And finally, Liz is asked to say a word about Rosa, whom we all care very much about.
Hi everyone. Most of you do know and have met Rosa Diaz, who our church has helped along her immigration way. I'm really concerned. She has had some really troubling looking neighbors, and they were evicted, and now all their stuff is on the front porch, and they're still sitting on the front porch. And now she's been evicted, so she's got to find a place now, and I'm hoping to get her out of that neighborhood. Her kids, if anybody knows of a place, they don't even have like a yard. They're very shut in. I'm thinking in Gentilly area or somewhere more out in that area. Or if you have any leads on anything, please let me know. And I'm getting a little choked up, but as I was afraid of, some of the trauma, I believe, is set in, especially on her older daughter now. I've got her set up with some counseling, but just keep them in your prayers. And if you ever have any extra money at the store, want to get some, especially produce, if I can help coordinate anything. She's a mom, they have 4 kids, she has them all day. It's not a very good situation right now. You can always drive by and see what I'm talking about. So, anyway, I love you all and I love them, and I know that you all will help. Thanks.
You know, Liz, I know that Jim has already lit a candle for Rosa. I think I'll light one for you and for the ministry you have done for this church with Rosa. We really appreciate it. And I lit the last 2 candles for those joys and sorrows that have remained within your heart in the privacy of your soul. We have another reading. This one is by Jim O'Neill. It's called American Soulicide. Took me a minute. He asks that we hold in our mind's eye the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor. When did we begin killing off our soul? Not in throwing off the king's oppression, nor by making one nation under God with freedom and justice for all. No. It began when one nation under God was replaced by bitter divisions, when for all became for me, when progress came to mean possessions and more is equated with better. When we dedicated the new shrine called the most powerful nation in the world. We left behind years as victims of oppression, took control, grasped power with a vengeance born of painful, buried memories, with a vengeance fed by atrocities unforgiven, with a vengeance for all who stood in our way. We were right, we were free, we were powerful, we were crusaders. And then we became oppressors. We pillaged this land, slaughtered the buffalo, humiliated and killed its native peoples. We did it with arrogant, grandiose power. Never seeing we were destroying ourselves, perpetuating an oppression that would soon victimize us again with hatred and violence. Our Soulicide is rooted in genocide that haunts and contaminates us still. They were the people who loved the earth, who knew it to be their mother, who felt connection with all living things, who submitted to ancient wisdom. We knew better. They were ignorant. We could master everything in our path. What stood in the way of our progress was destroyed, and once we had mastered the red and their land, it was easy to enlist and enslave the black. And our grand old lady, symbol of freedom and welcome to all, now stands hollow, soulless. Greed hardens her heart. Prejudice eats away her flesh. Power distorts her vision. Pride fills her head with air. Privilege puts out her welcoming torch. What is left? An empty shell. Justice and peace gone to hell. Some turn to God in desperation, but He is missing. Others say He is dead. Others find God down here below, but she is vulnerable, still becoming. The news turns loose the tiny tyrants. If God is too weak and powerless to intervene, egos step into the vacuum and take control. That tyranny leaves us ravaged and running, our dark shadows in constant pursuit. America, come home to your tormented soul. Weep over your ravaged land and your displaced people. Soften your heart with compassion. Flesh out your principles with justice. See again with the eyes of respect. Embrace the humility of the created. And light the welcoming fire of freedom. And you will, once again, gracious lady, raise your torch of hope to all our friends. For we must make no mistake about it now. On this, our small, beautiful planet, there is no longer room for enemies. All the killing now is soul aside.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Well, it may be a hot, sunny day in July, but as Nicholas pointed out, for many in America, it is winter and bleak in many, many ways. I was surprised and then dismayed to see last summer on CBS Sunday Morning that while I'd heard over the years so much about Woodstock in the 60s as a symbol of it, I never heard a word about the Harlem Cultural Festival, also known as Black Woodstock. It was held during the same summer of 1969 to celebrate African American music and culture and to promote the continued politics of Black pride. While Woodstock was held on August 15th through the 18th of 1969 and attracted 400,000, Black Woodstock was held on consecutive Sundays from the end of June through the end of August of the same summer, with crowds of 40 to 50,000 every Sunday, filling the grounds of Mount Morris Park in Harlem. That adds up, if you do the math, to 400,000. Why was this festival virtually ignored with the complete recordings sitting in a basement for 50 years? The film producer tried to get it the attention it deserved, but he was ignored. Finally, last year, one man, Amir Questlove Thompson, who was at the Harlem Cultural Festival as a child, could not forget it and its profound impact. And he set out to produce the documentary film entitled Summer of Soul, or When the Revolution Could Not Be Televised. I found it on Hulu and was blown away by the incredible number of talented musicians who performed. I'm talking about Stevie Wonder, Nina Simone, B.B. King, The Fifth Dimension, Gladys Knight and the Pips, Mahalia Jackson, Mavis Staples and family, plus many, many others, including Sly and Family Stone, singing the song you just heard today, Everyday People. We just got to live together. Just as powerful was the message that black was beautiful, powerful, joyful, and incredibly resilient. That summer, the word Negro was replaced by black. You remember that this was soon after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., and the whole country was reeling in profound grief, fear, and anger, while being forced to face the deep roots of racism, prejudice, and discrimination. What we saw back then on TV was a lot of footage of Woodstock and Apollo landing on the moon, but the Harlem Cultural Festival was virtually unknown and invisible. No surprise, right? After all, who was making the decisions about what to put on television time? It certainly wasn't black people. I encourage you to see the film, Summer of Soul, which is now available on Hulu as well as other platforms. What you will see is a strong contrast between the Woodstock images of some stoned, half-naked, carousing hippies. As far as the eye can see, at Black Woodstock, there's 50,000 black individuals and families are packed together, standing together, with some of them on top of rock formations in the background, or even up in the tree, and they are swaying, singing, clapping joyfully with the performers. The mayor of New York, John Lindsay, was there to honor the event, and Jesse Jackson to provide encouragement. But the main event was the music. Soul music, gospel music, music from many cultures, music that embodied how soul and spirit celebrate blacks and other oppressed minorities, how they have faced and overcome enormous obstacles to be there in joyful song. The security was provided not by NYPD, but by Black Panthers. And to my knowledge, there were no incidents of violence or drunkenness. It was a peaceful and joyful celebration which clearly provided hope and encouragement to the Harlem community that faced so many struggles and obstacles just to survive. Another surprise for me was how enduring that music of the festival is still today. Why, I wonder, when so much music has faded away? I think it's because that soul music rises up out of the deep feelings and soulful longings and dreams of an oppressed people striving for freedom and equality that this nation holds out as a promise for all who came to this country seeking freedom from oppression. I'm reminded of the short, powerful poem by Langston Hughes entitled Harlem. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? Hughes wrote that in 1951. Wasn't he predicting? We know what's happening now. It's exploding. The dream's too long deferred. And we understand that those explosions in our country come when black dreams and black lives are treated like they still do not matter. I'm afraid those explosions of protest will continue until the dream of equal rights for all are realized. The poem American Soulicide, which came to me some years ago, asked the question of when we began killing off our American soul. And we know it wasn't in throwing off the king's oppression. We know that that process was a courageous process in which our forebears were risking certain death in order to take the stand that, quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and they are endowed with certain unalienable rights, and that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Now let's take a couple of words. We know now that all men, let's put the caps on all, okay, was not just an insignificant oversight on the part of the drafters of the Declaration. Obviously, at that time, all did not include black men. In the white patriarchal culture that contaminates us still, all men meant all white men. It was not until December 6, 1865, that slavery was abolished. That's 89 years later. And of course, abolishing slavery did not mean equal rights and justice for blacks. We're still working on that. So it took 89 years for all men to include black men. Now back to those words, all men. Put the caps on men. It took 144 years before we as a nation figured out that all men should rightfully include half of the human race, women. It was on August 26, 1920, when the 19th Amendment prohibited denying the right to vote on the basis of sex, in effect, recognizing the right of women to vote. But of course, we all know the amendment did not grant women the equal rights they deserve. Women are still fighting every day to be treated equally in the work world, where white women still earn only 80% of what their male counterparts earn. And just last week, women were dealt a serious blow to their body autonomy and their reproductive rights by a stacked Supreme Court. Now, women, no matter the circumstances of their pregnancy, will in many states not be allowed to choose what they judge as best for themselves and their bodies and their families. Now, will the members of the Supreme Court be there to provide all the resources needed to raise those children? All women can tell you the issue of male dominance and female subordinates is not just about pay. The issues about sexual harassment continue to explode in the news, as spelled out in the Me Too movement, as well as the recent expose about sexual harassment in the military. The military has long been a male-dominated hierarchy that has covered up its harassment and discriminatory practices against women. Finally, not too long ago, action was taken to establish independent judicial bodies to adjudicate claims by women of rape and harassment in the military. For too long, we allowed foxes to guard the henhouse. And what about other male patriarchies and hierarchies? How are they working these days? One clear tragic example is the pedophilia crisis in the male Catholic hierarchy. Can you imagine that crisis would have reached the proportions it has if the hierarchy included women priests and married priests? Would mothers have stood by silently while their sons were being molested? Would not have happened. Would they have covered up the abuse and foisted predator priests on other church communities rather than drum them out of the priesthood? I think not. One of the real blessings and attractions of the Unitarian Universalist Church is we are consciously working to root out inequality and discrimination as best we can, and welcoming women into ministry and leadership positions. Our last minister was a woman, and our upcoming minister is a woman. Hallelujah. We're a work in progress, though, as the 2017 leadership crisis in UUA revealed discriminatory practices in terms of hiring white males. 121 UU ministers then wrote to the UU Board of Trustees a letter which said, and I quote, "The practice of hiring white people nearly to the exclusion of hiring people of color is alarming and not indicative of the communal practice to which our faith calls us." So white male supremacy has roots in our community as well, and we have to work hard to weed it out. I think we're doing a good job in having women in key leadership positions. We obviously have more work to do in attracting and welcoming more people of color into our community. As the poem pointed out, it's a whole nother issue for us as Americans to look at the real history of our country in a manner that honors the indigenous people of this country. How long will it take before Native Americans are granted their rights and equality? A recent UU General Assembly featured Roxanne Dunbar, the author of An Indigenous History of the United States. Just one example she gave us a suggestion that you draw on a piece of paper or now just in your mind's eye, a rough outline of the United States as it gained independence from Britain. You got that picture? Did you draw a picture of the 13 colonies hugging the Atlantic shore? Or, as most of us have done when asked, did you draw an outline of the U.S. today? Now, we actually know better, but we forget. This land was not our land in 1783. And most histories of the United States continue that story that we were discovered by Christopher Columbus and other Europeans, settled by English citizens seeking religious freedom, and expanded by brave settlers who moved westward in search of adventure and a better life. A myth-like origin story that leaves out key aspects of what actually happened and overemphasizes others. This doctrine of discovery, blessed by religious leaders, is embedded in most of our views of America. Obviously, that story ignores the long history of Native Americans on this land. A recent documentary on PBS, maybe you saw it, pointed out that Native Americans occupied this country, not as we thought, for 12,000 years, but more like 23,000 years. The poem American Soulicide describes the soul-killing behavior in our country, and it is an appeal to Americans to do some serious soul searching. That's why I titled this talk, Searching for the Soul of America, because I believe it's a challenge we face today. The past two elections, and particularly the January 6th attack on the Capitol and our democracy, reveals that there are a large number of Americans who continue to embrace the narrative of white male supremacy and are determined to use all means, including violence, to impose their views, believing that they are being patriotic in doing so. Bigner's reading on patriotism exposes how dangerous that is and has been historically. But we can no longer live in the denial that those views will simply die and go away. Those fires of insurrection and division are being fanned daily. And we best be vigilant and engaged in preserving our democracy and working every way we can to bring about what we call a more perfect union. Well, let's forget about the more perfect, huh? What can we do to hold our nation together as a people? We can't ignore the reality that in many countries, divisions have developed that lasted for decades, even centuries. Whether we talk about the Middle East or the conflict in Northern Ireland, we need to be aware that as much as we want to believe the end of the Civil War brought about true union in this country, it's just not so. Is the Declaration of Independence expressing the hopes and dreams in the soul of the American people today? Are we really working for a more perfect union, or are we splintering into factions looking for dominance? The current president is working hard to create bipartisan cooperation and emphasizing we are the United States. But so many are fanning the flames of division, hate, and mistrust that it's an uphill struggle every day. And I think we have to face the realistic possibility that our democracy may not survive. So, what do we as you use in the face of the battle for the soul of America? What do? Well, a poem by D.H. Lawrence came to mind called Healing. And I'm going to adapt it from individual illness and healing to country illness and healing. We are not mechanisms not working properly. We are ill as a country because of deep wounds to our American soul that only time, patience, and a certain difficult repentance, realization of our mistakes, and freeing ourselves of the mistakes that our country has chosen to sanctify. Unquote. Our task to heal our nation is that difficult repentance and the commitment to live out each day our covenant of 7 principles. The more we embody them in our everyday activities, the more we are offering to those near and far a vision of life as a community that is consistent with the Declaration of Independence. When we live these principles, I believe we honor the deepest longings of our individual souls and the hopes and dreams that founded this imperfect union. Most of the messages bombarding us every day are not calls to our souls. They are calls to our egos, our ambitions, greed, our fears, and our prejudices, but not our deepest, wisest selves, not our souls. So it's our work, each of us, individually as a community, to feed our souls. But even if we are to accomplish a more perfect union as country, we know that it won't be nearly enough to save our precious Earth, which we are destroying daily by global climate change. We now know we don't have the 89 years or the 144 years it took to abolish slavery or to give women the right to vote. In his film, David Attenborough, A Life on Our Planet, he warns us in no uncertain terms that we have a short window of time to save the human community before we make life on this planet uninhabitable. The wildfires, the floods, the increasing intensity of storms, the poverty, and the pandemic can be ignored only at our peril. Our Mother Earth is communicating urgently to us, calling us to our deepest, wisest soul. If we listen, we will hear the call to participate in saving our human community. It's the call of our seventh principle: respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. How we answer that urgent call is up to each of us, but I trust, knowing this community, that you will do your part. Amen. May it be so. Our benediction today is an adaptation from the poem. America, come home to your tormented soul. Weep over your ravaged land and your displaced people. Soften your heart with compassion. Flesh out your principles with justice. See again with the eyes of respect. Embrace the humility of the Creator. And light the welcoming fire of freedom. And you will once again, gracious Lady, raise your torch of hope to all our friends. For we must make no mistake about it, now on this small, beautiful planet, there is no longer room for enemies. All the killing now is Soulicide, and it is our love that gives us hope. You will note in the closing song that we've only included 2 verses from America the Beautiful, and instead of the verse, God mend thy every flaw, we've replaced that with, let us mend our every flaw. I think it's up to us, isn't it? I don't think it's in the book.
We have to know.
All right.
We should. We went through public school.